Hey guys, welcome to part one of our series for competitive computer science. Uh, what we're going to look at today is simply just how to get started with a really simple problem. I'm going to show you the while loop. I'm going to show you how to read from a file because we're going to use files quite a lot in competitive CS. But I'm also going to show you a very common loop that we use to process those files. And when I say common, I'm saying like 90% of the time we're going to use this loop. Like it gets so common that our competitors simply copy and paste this loop over, like as a kind of a template each time they start a problem. So it's that common. And so what I'm going to show you will work, like I said, 90% of the time, but sometimes there are going to be some tweaks that you need to make to it. But if you're brand new to competitive CS, or if you're not even through the first Java course yet here at the school, this is going to give you somewhere to start so that you can begin and start working on these problems with us. So what we're going to do is I have a file here called fileexample.dat. Now .dat file works just like a .txt or a text file. So we're going to treat it the exact same. Just if we're doing competitive CS, if we're doing UIL, they're going to give us data files or .dat files. I don't know why. It's just something they do. So first we need to know how to get this file inside of Eclipse. So here I have a project folder called UIL practice. So in Eclipse, when we're dealing with a file, we want to drag and drop that file directly on top of the project folder, not inside the source folder, not inside any of these, straight on top of that project folder. So if you've got it in your downloads, you just click and drag it and then drop it right on top of that folder. Say you want to copy that file over, and then it's right here. Now I have all of my DAT files organized into a separate folder, but don't worry about that. For you guys and the few problems you're going to work at a time, this is perfectly okay. So you'll see it outside of all these folders. That's important because that's the default location. That's where Eclipse is going to look for it. So real quick, if you're in the first Java course, we learned about how to read from files pretty early on, probably in the second 9 weeks. So this is coming up. So I'm going to go through this rather quickly. But in order to read from a file, we need something called a file object. There's a file class inside the Java API that we use to read from this file. And this is how we set it up. You'll notice it looks a lot like the scanner, like when we set up a scanner. It also needs an import from the java.io. So we can click on that and it's going to import it into our program. Now next, all that does is opens the file up so that we can read it and access the data. It doesn't actually do the reading per se. So what we're going to use to actually read from it is a scanner. And we set this up almost exactly like we normally would. I'm going to do that on purpose. Now, when we normally set up a scanner, we point it to what's called system.in or system input. This is pointed towards the keyboard. Since we want to get the data from a file, we're going to instead point it to our file object that we created. So we're going to use the variable name we use for that file object. Now, just like with scanner all the time, we need to import scanner. So there's our import. And because we're reading from a file, we need to add something called a throws clause. So good thing is Eclipse will do that for us if we click on it. And what this does is it helps in case it can't find the file. So I'm going to intentionally misspell it so that you can see the error that pops up. It says system cannot find, the file essentially. So that's what that does, is it handles that exception. Without that, I can't even run the file. I can't even run the program. So, all right, so now we're set up. We have everything we need to read from the file. We simply need to utilize the scanner to get all the data off. So I'm going to pull up the file so you can see what's on it. So on this file, here's what I've got. I've just got a number. That number is going to represent how many lines of text that are coming next on the file. So banana and cream. And then 3 is going to represent the next 3 lines. So it's going to tell me how many times I need to loop in order to get the next pieces of data. This is very common in competitive CS problems where it will give you an integer and then give you the subsequent data that you need to get off the file. That way you process things like I'll process banana and cream, then I'll process olive turtles completely separate based off how many lines that tells me I need to loop through. So what we're going to do, all I really want to do, I'm not going to do anything crazy. I just want to get these off the file and print them one at a time. So I want to be able to grab banana cream and print that to the screen, and then grab whatever's left, which is olive turtles, and print that. So the first thing that we need to do, and like I said, now we're getting into, this is all part of uh, what your code is going to look like I said, 90% of the time. We're going to be dealing with files, so we're going to have a file object and a scanner object. We're going to have this throws clause. We're going to have these import statements. The next thing that a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times we're going to need is we're going to need to grab that integer that's on the first line. So I'm going to create an integer here. I'm going to call it in because in a lot of the problems we see, the problem references it as in. And so I'm going to call it in just because of that. And then input, we're going to use our scanner here to grab it. Input.nextInt here. So that's going to grab that first number, 2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that 2 in order to loop through and grab the next things on the file. Now, in programming, we want to process things in order, or we want to take them one step at a time. So instead of trying to get everything all at once off this file, I'm simply going to get these things first and see if I can get that to work. So I'm going to need a loop. We could use a for loop or a while loop, but a while loop's a little less code in this case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that in, and I'm going to say while n is greater than 0, let's loop through and grab the strings off of the file. So I'm going to create an empty string, and I'm going to, or let's just call it phrase. I'm going to build this string. So I'm going to create an empty string that I can build onto with the lines that are on the file. Okay, so I'm going to say phrase plus equals input.nextLine, and then we'll print these out, print out the phrase. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, so it's telling me no line found. So what's happening is I forgot to put n minus minus. What that's going to do is it's going to start in at 2, and then while n is greater than 0, it's going to keep running. And then I forgot to put in n minus minus, which is going to make n count backwards or count down to 0. So let's run it one more time. So it only grabbed banana. So it grabbed the 2 here, but then it only grabbed the first phrase off the file. So what's happening is, if you've been in, if you're at a certain point in the honors class, you might have ran into this already, or maybe not. There's an issue with scanner in that when we go from an integer or double to a string input, it kind of errors out, or it doesn't, the logic is kind of flawed. What happens is it's going to read the 2 off the file just fine, and then it's going to not progress the scanner to get banana on the next loop when the loop runs. And then it's going to progress it on the second loop and grab banana. And then it's going to stop and never make it to cream. And that's because when we do .nextLine, it progresses the scanner down. So it'll grab like this line, then it'll grab that line, then it'll grab that line, and it'll keep progressing. But when we have an integer or double, it stays on the same line, the cursor does. So when the only time it moves down to get banana is after it runs this command once. So it grabs banana, then it progresses the scanner and it grabs it. So in order to fix that, there's a couple of ways we can fix it. The first way is that we can insert another input.next line here to progress the scanner, and then we get our banana cream. Now, another way that I would do it is like this, is I would always take things in as strings. So if you always use the input.next line and then parse it, and always take inputs in, sorry, should be integer. Parsing is converting. So we're going to take everything in as a string and then parse what we need to into the appropriate data type. And if we do that, it's always going to run the .next line method, which means it's always going to progress the cursor and everything's going to be hunky-dory. So that's what I do, is I simply do .next line. I don't use any other input methods, any other scanner methods, and then I simply parse whatever it is I need to parse, whether it's an int or a double. And then I never run into the issue of it breaking or airing out, because you may not know, like the data that the judge is using might throw a string in there and screw up your code. Okay, so now the last part, let's build this so that it can grab all of the data no matter what. So what we're going to do is we're going to go right outside where we're grabbing this in, because there's another in, remember? There's another 3 to go. So here, we're going to use a method called hasNext. That's a scanner method that's going to continue to run as long as there's a next line on the file. And so this is going to repeat everything that I have in here. So everything in there was like an algorithm. It's everything I need to grab the phrase. It grabs the integer, it starts a brand new string for me from scratch, and then it grabs that phrase, whatever it is, as many lines as it is, and then it prints it out. And I simply want that to repeat for however many lines there are. Like, it could keep going. Like, I could put a 5 here and put like 5 lines of text, and it would keep going and grab whatever was there. So input.hasNext will continue as long as there's a new line on the file. So this should work out. There we go. So this is the basic structure that you're going to be using for most of the problems that you see. And honestly, sometimes there's not even a need to grab an integer like that. Most of the time, you're going to start your problems just like this. So if you want to take this code and stash it somewhere, put it in an example inside Eclipse for yourself, this can get you started on most of the problems that we're going to work. It's everything you need to get started with reading from a file. Remember, you'll have to change this to whatever the name of your file is, and then this will loop through the file and grab whatever is on it. And then inside this loop, you simply put your algorithm or whatever it is that you need to do to manipulate that said data. So I hope this helps. In the next video, we'll look at what if some of the data is on the same line instead of simply on separate lines. How can we process that data differently?